Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. Today we're going to be delving deep into this weekend's League One action. Not a full programme, not a full schedule, because of course it is FA Cup weekend, but still some incredible games and thrilling games to give my thoughts on and break down tactically as well. Of course, if you're one of the fans of these teams, you've got something to say, please make sure you give your thoughts in the comments down below. Probably, like I usually do, be giving you different things to talk about as the episode goes on. So let me know in the comments down below if you want to see, again, this sort of style of video, breaking down these sort of games. Maybe when we have got a full program of games, just let me know in the comments down below. We are currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We need to get to 700 first, but the ultimate goal is 1,000. So please join the story, join the journey, hit that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot. Hit that notification bell as well, because that way you'll never miss an episode of the podcast. You'll be notified when I go live or when I do a recorded episode just like this one. And if you enjoy the episode, like I said, just show your support by hitting that like button, hitting that thumbs up button. It really would mean the world. Right, let's get straight into it. I'm going to start off with the first game. There are some incredible games to get into. Like I said, there's not a huge amount of games. We are going to be looking at every game. Some games we'll look into more than others. We can see the games on this screen here. You can see the amount of games we've got and also the score lines we've got in those games as well. But we're going to start off with Doncaster against Fleetwood Town. Because this one is a bit of a, I wouldn't say a relegation 6-pointer. You can see where they are in the league. Doncaster are bottom of the league and Fleetwood are one position above the relegation zone. So it's sort of a relegation 6-pointer and a game that Fleetwood needed to get something from, to sort of climb away from that relegation zone and sort of steer themselves away from a battle. Doncaster, well, they need the points for pretty obvious reasons. They're bottom of the league and they really needed to get themselves out of that relegation zone. They couldn't do it with a win. Obviously, you can see there is a bit of a gap there, 9 points between themselves and 20th, where Fleetwood are just outside that zone. So a win yesterday wouldn't have done it on its own, but it really would have helped. It would have, of course, taken the points off a relegation rival in Fleetwood. It wasn't to be, and Fleetwood won the game 1-0. I think for Fleetwood, this is a fantastic result. This is a game in which Fleetwood needed to get a win, and they did it. When we look at games before they happen, when we do the predictions episode, I didn't do one this weekend because there wasn't a lot of games, and of course FA Cup weekend, and quite busy with doing other episodes. I will try and bring the predictions back though for next week, because we have got a full schedule, hopefully, of League One football. But if I was doing the predictions, I would say Fleetwood today. Fleetwood got a win yesterday. In this case, it would be a huge win, and it's certainly a significant one because, like I said, they're climbing away from relegation battle, and you can see here it's a worrying time for Doncaster. Although it's a great result for Fleetwood, for Doncaster, this is a worrying result, and you can see here on that momentum graph that is worrying, really worrying. You can see on this here, this shows the attacking momentum throughout the game. It is all Fleetwood, and when Doncaster did have a quite a rare spike in their attacking play, it was so small. And you know what, I've got Doncaster fans I know that watch this episode of the podcast, and I know watch this podcast and listen to it. It was a bit of a pathetic attempt, and it looks a bit pathetic, and I mean that in the most non-harsh way possible, because obviously we respect every team in this league, and I respect all the fans in this league, but this was a pathetic, I think, attempt at beating what needed to be, or who are a relegation rival in Fleetwood, and Fleetwood are now climbing themselves away from that relegation zone, and fair play to them. Although Doncaster weren't great, and you can see there Fleetwood, they were very good, in terms of when they did have the ball, when they were attacking. You can see that they dominated Doncaster in that area. They got a goal in their biggest spike of the game. They looked really quite promising and very good. Away from home, not an easy place to go, Doncaster, even if they're not in the best of form. They still need to go there and get a result. Just after half-time, they take the lead, they win the game. For me, that's a fantastic result. And of course, their new man as well, Elias Harrison, of course, somebody that was linked with them, has been linked with a lot of clubs from potentially a loan move. I believe this is a loan move from Portsmouth to Fleetwood. He's been linked with a lot of clubs. He's gone to Fleetwood. They needed a striker. They needed a goal scorer. And Harrison's doing that. Harrison did that yesterday. He got that goal. And fair play to them. Fair play to Fleetwood. Again, that was a massive and such an important win. Quickly before we move on, we'll see the stats here as well. They dominated in that possession. They had more shots on target. They had more corners. They had less offsides and less fouls. So, in the areas in which you don't want to have as many, They didn't have as many. So again, they dominated Doncaster in that area and certainly got an advantage in that sense. You can see there, and for me, Doncaster, this is the worry. We look at that attacking momentum graph. We can see they didn't offer much, but you can then see here as well, big chances, absolutely none across the 90 minutes. And that is something they need to look at if they want to get themselves of what is a very, very big hole. We know that obviously Gary McSheffrey's been appointed as that now permanent manager after a caretaker role. Well, he needs to go and look at that transfer market. Now he's appointed, and he needs to look at this squad now and look at this side and go, well, we need additions and we need them quick. If we're going to get ourselves, like I said, what is a deep, deep hole that they seem to be digging deeper and deeper as the season goes on, they need to start bringing some players in. They need to start bringing in some creativity. They need to start creating things, because they're not doing that, and you're not going to score goals without creating chances. And they got no big chances in that game. Fleetwood had 2. Of course, they scored 1. They missed the other. But 1-0, a clean sheet for Fleetwood as well on the road. Great win for them, not just in this game, but for the sort of broader scheme of things. When you look at that league table, it's a fantastic result. But for Doncaster, it's really, really worrying. And the worrying times continue for Doncaster. They need to get things resolved as quickly as possible. So where should we go there? I think we'll go to Accrington Stanley. You can see here, let's have a look. Obviously take away the Cambridge, well, that was last week. But you look here, the 8th, where the games were yesterday. You can see the red cards, 3 red cards across the games. You can see there were some decisions, some big decisions made by the referees when it comes to handing out red cards. And I want to talk about this Accrington Stanley MK Dons game. It finishes 1-1. And sometimes when you look at scorelines, who is going to take that result at the best, and who would have taken a result that before the game kicked off? Well, this one's quite difficult to judge that, because it's at Accrington Stanley, which suggests to me there is a home advantage, and we've seen this season that there is a home advantage now with fans back in grounds. So Accrington maybe could have hoped to get something more than a point, but honestly, I still think Accrington will take this result. Again, MK Dons are just outside the playoff spots, only 3 points outside the 6th spot and just outside that top 6. For me, I think for both sides, who's going to come away happy with that? But I don't really know, because going to Accrington Stanley is not easy at all. So I think a 1-1. I think both teams probably would have, and fans and those set of fans would probably be quite happy with it. MK Dons maybe would have hoped to get more from it because they wanted to push into that top 6. But really, like I said, Accrington Stanley is a tough place to go. So to be honest, I think 1-1, both sides will probably come away from that quite happy. But the best way of looking at that as well is what did happen in the game. Will both teams come away with this quite happy? There we go. That's the answer. And that's why I wanted to have the discussion before we looked at the momentum graph. Before the game, who's going to look happy? Well, I mean, look at that. I think MK Dons are going to be slightly disappointed. You can see Accrington Stanley got a red card, I believe, in the first half, the 34th minute. Liam Cole got that red card. Colby Bishop, of course, is doing a fantastic job this season. He's done a great job for Accrington Stanley, scoring some goals. Scored in the 9th minute to make it 1-0, and then Isa scored in the 25th minute for MK Dons. It's 1-1. 2 goals in 25 minutes. It's looking like it's going to be a really, really quite goal-scoring game, if you like, and a really, really good game. A red card happens in the 34th minute, and just like that, MK Dons are just going at Accrington Stanley and creating, from what it looks like at the stats, not many big chances, but certainly they're having that attacking momentum, and it's much greater than Accrington Stanley. So that's when I bring you back to the point I said at the start when we talk about who's going to take that result at the start of the game. Well, probably a draw is quite a happy result. MK Dons away from home. Let's get a point from this sort of game, who are 11th for Accrington Stanley, who are doing well this season. They are quite a common banana skin for a lot of sides, especially the teams that are trying to get into the top 6 or already are in that top 6. Accrington Stanley maybe take a point from the game, maybe would have hoped to get something a little bit more, being the home side. Well, I think Accrington Stanley are going to be very, very happy with that. I think MK Dons are going to come away quite disappointed with that. You can see there that attacking momentum graph. MK Dons were putting pressure on Accrington pretty much from that red card. I'd say actually pretty much since they scored that first goal, everything was MK Dons. Literally 2 spikes, maybe just after half-time for Accrington Stanley and about the 70th minute for Accrington Stanley as well. But other than that, it's all MK Dons, and you can see that Accrington will definitely take that result, and MK Dons are probably kicking themselves coming away from that game. Now, we look at the stats as well. I mean, that is incredible. 81% possession. MK Dons had 81% possession. They had 81% of the ball in that game. That is incredible. That is what you normally see after 5 minutes when it comes up on the screen. You know, the last 5 minutes possession, 81%. Not after 90 minutes. 81% possession is incredible. The first half, 72%, but in that second half, 88%. Everything was MK Dons, and that's why I say MK Dons are surely kicking themselves. They couldn't make more of it. When you have 80 overall, 81%, but 88% in the second half, you've got to try and create something more than one big chance. It's not great. You can see they had 23 total shots, 7 on target, 6 off target. They had 14 corners. You know, I think the big chances might be a little bit harsh on MK Dons, really. From what it looks like there, 23 shots. It looks like they had opportunities. It looks like they had chances to win the game. They couldn't do it. And you know, I think they will be kicking themselves. I think they will be a little bit disappointed. And we talk about games in which you can use to push into that top 6. I think MK Dons are probably going to look at this one now, and maybe look back on this one now with a sense of disappointment. But ultimately, they're not out of the race. Accrington, again, they're not really out of the race either for top 6, if that's something they're looking for. But did they get away with one yesterday, should I say, sorry? Probably not. No, so yeah, probably they probably did. Did MK Dons? I mean, they're going to be kicking themselves. They're going to be wanting to see themselves get more from that game. I don't know, though. That sounds like a crazy game. A red card definitely changing that match, but 81% possession in a game for MK Dons in which they draw. There's probably going to be a sense of disappointment in that one. Right, then let's move on to the next one. Then let's go to Cheltenham against Burton Albion. It finishes 1-1 in this one. Before we do that, let's have a look at the league table. You can see very, very close to each other after that game, 12th and 13th. You know, exactly. Just out, either dead on in that mid-table spot or one position below it. 32 points to Burton, 30 to Cheltenham. A 2-point gap between the two of them. 1-1 is the final score. But in this game, I want to highlight a few individuals because I think that's going to be really quite interesting. You can see here, Cheltenham have gone for Dan Ndula, I believe his name is. Of course, he was at Lincoln City for the first half of the season. He got recalled. He had a pretty horrific loan spell. He's gone back out to Cheltenham. And in his game here, you can see he did very, very well. A 7.1 average rating. You can see here, didn't score a goal. But I want to show you these average ratings and how this average positions, and I want to show you as well how that is going to be really, really influential for this Cheltenham side, who we know have Alfie May, who's probably the quicker player, a player that can sort of get in behind the opposition, frustrate oppositions with his fantastic finishing, but also his great creativity and his also, I guess, willingness to run and press. And you've got Ndula, who's also there now, a really good striker next to Alfie May, as well, working together and almost complementing each other very, very well. That's exciting. And that's a player I really wanted to highlight and show that I think this could be really, really fascinating how he does. He didn't do well at Lincoln. I think for Cheltenham, though, in this system, I think this could work really, really well. If he's got the willingness to press like Alfie May has up front, I think this could be absolutely brilliant and really quite interesting to watch. I also want to look, as we always do, at this momentum graph. It finishes 1-1. And you can see here, 1-1, it's a fairly close game. It's a fairly equal game. It's exactly equal. It's one goal apiece. But we look at the momentum graph as well. That looks pretty equal. I know. There's bigger spikes than others, but you know, you probably say Cheltenham have had more spikes when it comes to that attacking momentum. But when Burton did have their moments, they looked a little bit more, and their spikes are quite bigger. And you can see that big spike there is when they got their goal. We look at those statistics, again, fairly close. What we're seeing from this is generally quite a close game of football. I think that's fair to say. You can see there 51% possession to 49. More shots for Cheltenham. So, you know, it's close, but I think Cheltenham created a little bit more, maybe being the home side, that allowed them to do so. But in terms of those areas, it looked a fairly close game, but Cheltenham may be coming away from this game a little bit disappointed. They couldn't get more than a draw. You look at those stats there, they did look like they dominated in some key areas, especially offensively. So that's quite interesting. They had more passes in the game. They were more accurate with those passes. They had more crosses, and they were more accurate with those crosses as well. It's interesting. Fairly close in the league position. You couldn't get much closer. A tight game finishing 1-1. But some stats there maybe suggesting that they they could have got more from it, potentially, Cheltenham. And we know what Cheltenham like to do. They're well organised, and they really, really do play some really, really quite good football at times. But what I would say as well, I stress this, well organised, well drilled Michael Duff side that he's now got going there. They look well coached, and I think Cheltenham, they're going to be fine for relegation. I think that's safe to say. And against Burton, who, like I said, are in mid-table, they got a draw, and I think they're going to be fairly happy with that. So then let's move on to the next one then in League One. Let's discuss, well, we've spoken about some really fascinating games, but I think we now come on to some of probably the ones that I think a lot of people want us to talk about. We'll start off with Lincoln against Oxford, because I don't want to go into too much detail about this one, because I have got a dedicated match reaction for that, and if you want to go into that, I do tactically break it down. I have a tactical board as well, where I recreate moments in the games, which are quite interesting to speak about and discuss. So if you want to check that out, it's in the channel. It is the match reaction we did after the game. But it's a defeat for Oxford United in League One, and a really quite miserable, disappointing one. And like I said, I'm not going to talk about it a lot, because I've got a half an hour episode on it yesterday, so I don't want to just recreate it for the sake of it. But in terms of giving Lincoln some credit as well, because when you do a match reaction as an Oxford United fan, you do then just look at Oxford straight after the game, because you're frustrated, you're disappointed. I didn't give Lincoln much credit yesterday. I think I should do, because they were very, very good. Very, very good. And I want to highlight that front three that Lincoln had as well. They were brilliant. And it's not just because two of the three got goals, but I think all three of them worked really, really well. And the way that Lincoln played as well, it suited that front three brilliantly. There was passes in the midfield from Conor McGrandles and Fionnery. Is that how you pronounce his name? I definitely think that's wrong. I can't do pronunciations, and I've definitely expressed that one as well once again. The cross-field passes from players, from the switch of play, allowing Anthony Scully to get in behind, allowing Morgan Whittaker to use his pace as well. The new signing certainly making an impact straight away yesterday. Both of those players allowed to get in behind, using their dribbling ability to then Anthony Scully for his goal, cutting inside and scoring. Really, really impressed. Honestly, absolutely just very, very impressed with Lincoln City. And although Oxford United weren't good, and we did make Lincoln, I'd say, look fairly better, and we allowed Anthony Scully and Morgan Whittaker the space, the time, and I guess we allowed them to show their better attributes. They were good, but we sort of enhanced that with probably some moments in the games in which I think we could have been definitely better, and some performances by some individuals I think that definitely could have been better. That definitely is, for me, a disappointment. We look at that attacking graph as well. I mean, we didn't offer enough. And one thing that I want to highlight as well, we didn't get to speak about Carl Robinson's comments, Oxford United manager's comments after the game yesterday, because we did it straight after the game and straight at full time. But really, for me, we just didn't look like ourselves, and that allowed Lincoln definitely to be motivated for this game, pumped and ready to sort of take on Oxford United side that yesterday really, really weren't at the races, really, really were off the boil, and just didn't look like the Oxford United side that we've seen this season. And I'd say the Oxford United side that I think have been very, very successful so far this season, we just weren't that yesterday. And like I said, although Lincoln were good in a lot of areas, we just did not look like ourselves. And if you, in this league, if you're not yourself, we don't play to the highest standards, every side and every team in this league is going to cause a threat. Lincoln are going to have now moved outside of the relegation zone, but they're in a false position. And that shows exactly the sort of league that League One find themselves in and find itself in right now. So many teams, I'd say, not in false positions, but certainly a lot of teams that are very, very good. And you've got to be at your best, even when you look at that league position. You don't maybe think you have to be at your best. You do, because teams will pounce on you and cause problems. There's not one weak side. There's not one easy game. It's a cliche in football, but it's true, and especially in League One, it couldn't be more. Couldn't be more further from the truth. You've got to be on it. You've got to be at your best. Now, things didn't help us. The Herbie Kane red card. I haven't watched it since, so I'm in the same boat as I was yesterday. Some people are saying it's a red card. Some people aren't. For me, we can't now go back and say if it was or it wasn't. The game did change, I'd say, since that sort of after that red card, because it looked, we were knocking on the door, but we never looked like we were going to score. A team that creating chances sort of almost desperately to try and get something from it when we were 2-0 down. The first half was the reason why we got ourselves in that position. That first half was so poor. That first half was really quite disappointing. And it set I guess, the second half up to be quite an uphill task. And even though it was only 1-0 at half time, it still felt like the game was done. It still felt the game was finished because Oxford were not good in that first half. And in the second half, we had so much work to do. We had to commit men going forward. And Lincoln had the qualities in Whittaker and in Anthony Scully and many others, but those two in particular who got the goals, to pounce and capitalise on that, on the committed men that Oxford had to commit. So, yeah, 2-0 is the final score. It's not a good result for Oxford. We look at those stats. Oxford, we like to play a possession game of football. The stats suggest we did that by 4%. So, but 53%. So, but possession's one thing. What are you going to do with the ball? We saw MK Dons had 81% of the... No, not MK Dons. It was the last game, sorry. It was MK Dons, sorry, that had 81% of the ball, but, couldn't do anything with it. We talk about Oxford United. We had 81% possession of the ball. We had one big chance. We missed it. They were much more clinical with their opportunities, and that's just the way it is. It's a difficult one to take, but yeah, one player to definitely highlight, Morgan Whittaker. I said it before the game. He was brilliant in the game, but I said before it, he's a player to watch out for, and he certainly was. Again, if you want to see me go more into detail about that game and about that straight after kickoff, my raw thoughts after kickoff, definitely check out the last episode of the podcast, the live match reaction to Oxford's disappointing Sky Bet League 1 defeat to Lincoln City. Anyway, let's move on to the next one then. We have got the next game, and it is going to be... We're going to come to the Wycombe Sunderland's game last. We'll go to Gillingham against Ipswich, because what a result this is for Ipswich, and what a performance this was from Ipswich as well. I mean, you can see here, look at those average ratings. It's red all over for Gillingham. It was a day to forget for them. But for Ipswich Town, under Kieran McKenna, under new management, he's doing an absolutely phenomenal job. Again, you can't get over the top. You can't, I think as Ipswich fans, I think they'll probably be saying, let's not go too over the top just yet. It is only 2 games. But in those 2 games, they've been absolutely brilliant. And I don't think many Ipswich Town fans can help themselves but feel quite excited about the future and about the new management and this philosophy that Kieran McKenna is trying to implement. I think is implementing very, very well at the moment onto his Ipswich Town players. I watched the post-match interview to this game, and he said, and I think the question was, are we now seeing a philosophy and a style of play that Kieran McKenna is trying to implement on these players? And he said, well, again, you've got to take your time. We need to be over the top, but he saw some really, really positive things from this game as well. He looks like a manager that knows what he's doing, which sounds silly, but he looks like quite a methodical and thinking manager, and you'd hope that a lot of managers' levels are that, but you'll be surprised. I think Kieran McKenna is doing a brilliant job, and not just yesterday's results showed that. It certainly helped, and we've seen some fantastic results already from him, but I was so impressed with them yesterday, so impressed. And, it's 4-0. It was a easily comfortable result. The 3 goals in the first half were certainly setting up a second half that was going to be an uphill battle, to say the least, for Gillingham. And then, of course, they got that other goal as well to make it 4 in that second half. But I was just so impressed, honestly, so impressed by this Ipswich Town side. I want to highlight a few players, but I think the main one to talk about at the moment is Bon up front. I mean, he's been brilliant since he signed the football club on loan from QPR in the summer. And I think we're already seeing again this season, and especially this recent games, really how important he is. So you can see here, he got a goal yesterday as well. He got an assist as well. So in terms of his goal contributions yesterday, he was absolutely brilliant. And him and James Norwood are really creating a fantastic partnership in that front too. Now, we wondered that is what's James Norwood's future at Ipswich Town. There are a lot of teams looking at bringing him on loan when Paul Cook didn't really see him as somebody that was part of his plans. Well, Paul Cook's gone now, McKenna's in, and James Norwood now seems to be a really, really big part of Kieran McKenna's plans. And if you're James Norwood, I think you're really, really excited. And if you're Bon as well, that partnership is really, really good, and they're scoring goals, which is the most important thing, really. They're scoring goals. They're complementing each other really, really well. They've got a Luco behind him as well that's a really, really talented player. But it's that midfield for me of James Morsey and Lee Evans that have looked really, really good, especially since Kieran McKenna's come in. They've had a really, really solid midfield base, and I've been so impressed by them. Defensively yesterday, they didn't really have to sort of do much. They had 6 shots, but none on target, Gillingham. So that defence wasn't really phased, but they still had to be on it, and they did well in that sense. We look at that momentum graph. Again, it's all Ipswich, and that shows exactly what Kieran McKenna wants to do with this Ipswich Town squad. He wants them to attack. He wants them to play this offensive, attacking, off-the-wall style of play. Not off the wall to make it sound like it's attack and there's no sense of defence, because a clean sheet yesterday showed that. But you can clearly see his attacking want to, and he wants to see that by his players. And that again is a really, really exciting thing for Ipswich Town fans. This momentum graph shows that very, very clearly. They scored 3 goals in that first half pretty quickly as well. And you can see here Gillingham didn't offer much. They are really, really struggling at the moment. But Ipswich just looked so comfortable through the game. They were very, very good in terms of attacking, and they made sure that they could do that on a consistent basis. It's not easy to attack for 90 minutes. You can see here, though, pretty much they were in control going forward for 90 minutes. Again, that's a really, really exciting thing if you are a Ipswich fan. 75% possession of the ball as well. They had control on the ball. They didn't allow Gillingham to get any sort of rhythm. Very, very high possession, 75%. We know Steve Evans' Gillingham side doesn't like to have the ball even when they do win games or when they're trying to win games. But I think 75% possession just says a lot. It says how brilliant Ipswich Town were and how in control they were. 15 shots to 6. But we look at a Gillingham perspective, although we're praising Ipswich so much and so they deserve that, and how Kieran McKenna and this team are definitely looking like they're getting better week in, week out, and as this season goes on, they are improving. You can see that. We've got to highlight Gillingham's issues there. No big chances in the game. Absolutely just not good enough. No shots on target either. No wonder they didn't create anything. And no wonder that momentum graph looks so bleak, because they did not create anything or enough in this game at all. Defensively, they're going to get low average ratings because they conceded 4 goals. You can see there a red card as well in the 73rd minute. It's not going to help at all. 2 yellow cards. They got that goal in the 85th minute to make it 4-0. It's a disappointing result. It's a bleak result. It's a poor result in the sense of Gillingham. For Ipswich, it helps them massively as they climb up that league table. Now sat in 10th, 35 points as well. You can see there are 2 games that Kieran McKenna has been in charge. He's got to those 2 wins. They now find themselves, if I do those maths quite quickly, about 8 points away from the top 6. For Gillingham, though, it's 22nd in the league, 18 points, only 2 points off the bottom. They need to get themselves out of what is a very, very disappointing and worrying position to find themselves in. They are on 18 points. Of course, Fleetwood, who we mentioned, are on 25 points. Of course, they are sat in 20th. Disappointing times for Cheltenham, for Gillingham. Disappointing and worrying times for them. But for Ipswich, a fantastic result, a fantastic win. And Kieran McKenna is certainly getting the job done very, very well at Ipswich. As, of course, their new manager. Finally, then, we're going to talk about Wycombe against Sunderland. I believe that's the final game to talk about, and what a game to leave till the last minute, or not the last minute, but talking of last minutes, I mean, that's quite an apt saying in this sort of game. The last minute is definitely something that this game had to offer. We are going to talk about it for longer than a minute, but a lot of things happen in the dying seconds, and we will come on to that, of course. I want to talk about the game as a whole, though, first of all. I want to talk about the different aspects of this game and how important this game was. Look at that league table, 2nd against 3rd. It set up a huge game. It set up a really interesting game against 2 sides that are up there this season, playing good football. Like I said, are in a very, very good position at the top end of this League One table. You can see there on the form as well. You can see Sunderland are looking like the better side in terms of form, but very, very close, to be fair. Both sides come into this game with a draw as their last one, and before that, a win. So, to be honest with you, and again, very, very close, like I said, in the league position, I want to ask the question like I did earlier for Accrington against MK Dons. Who wants what from this game? And going into this game, what does each team see as that sort of will take it result? That's the best way of putting it. Who wants what from this game? I think Sunderland will probably go to Wycombe going, a point's not bad at all. If we can get a win, then brilliant. For Wycombe, they're probably going, a point's not a bad result, but if we want to push into that top 2, a win would be brilliant. We're at home, we've got that home advantage. I mean, all of those possibilities could have happened in that game, and that's why this game is actually really, really fascinating. All of those different possibilities, those different avenues for results could have happened across an absolutely hectic 90 minutes of football. I want to mention a few players as well who continue to be brilliant, and it's got to be this man, hasn't it? Ross Stewart. Can we bring up his game stats just for yesterday? Yes, we can. I mean, he has been absolutely brilliant this season. We've mentioned how good he's been. We've ranked every League One striker, and you can check that out in a tier list based on the statistics. But yesterday, again, 2 goals. He was absolutely brilliant. I've watched the highlights back. Ross Stewart is brilliant. He's brilliant in the air. He's brilliant with his feet. He's just an absolutely phenomenal player. And in terms of Sunderland getting out of this league, having a goal scorer like Ross Stewart, could they replace Charlie Wycombe of last season? Well, I think Ross Stewart is coming into that striker position. Of course, Charlie Wycombe's got a lot of goals for Sunderland last season. Ross Stewart's come up front today and this season and absolutely been a different level kind of play. He's been brilliant, and you can see that yesterday. Such a fantastic performance from him. I also want to mention Sam Vokes, their striker, who got a goal as well. He again was brilliant yesterday, and it was a fascinating end-to-end game. It was nothing short than an end-to-end match in which 2 sides who are very, very close to each other in the league table clearly both have great qualities. And again, yesterday we were just able to show that in a thrilling encounter, and that's what you want to see more than anything. I want to look at that momentum graph as well, as we've done with every game. You can see 3-3, a 6-goal thriller, and you can see it probably was most Sunderland. If you look at what can you see more blue to green, it probably is blue that sort of stands out a little bit more. Which means confusingly, even though Wycombe play in blue, this graph is showing Sunderland in blue. That Sunderland had more of the ball and they had better attacking momentum. Maybe not more of the ball. We'll come on to that as well. Interesting. Did they have more of the ball? They did actually have more of the ball, but you can see that's not really what this graph shows. This graph shows that attacking momentum and how good they are offensively. You can see there Sunderland probably did have more of it, but you can see when Wycombe did have their chances, other than the last minute where that spike is really quite small, but it was a corner that led to the goal. You can see when those big spikes happened for Wycombe, they were prolific and they scored their goals, and that is what Wycombe are so good at this season. They don't have the highest XG, they don't have the highest expected goals, they don't have the biggest chances created, but what they do is they're very, very clinical when they do it. And to be honest, for Wycombe to concede 3 goals, it's not great for them. They like to play a game when there isn't 3 goals conceded. But they can come away with a draw when they concede 3 goals, Wycombe. I think they'll definitely take that. And to score a goal in the 8th minute of injury time to sort of get a point from the game, they'll be delighted. For Sunderland, again, I asked the question, like I did at the start, who wants what from this game? Well, Sunderland are going to be very, very annoyed they conceded in the last minute, so they are going to be disappointed in that sense. And that's how things can change before a game and after a game. You know, a point Sunderland probably would have taken at the start of the game against a team that are 3rd in the league, away from home, you probably would take a point from it. You'd want to get a win, of course you would, but you'd probably take a point, a minimum a point. When the game finishes how it did, you're going to come away gutted that you didn't get 3 points, because you were leading in the game in the 8th minute of injury time and you let it slip for a Joe Jacobson goal. And that is just how things can change, and that's how important and how fascinating football can be. That's how your perspective on games and sort of, it's your perspectives on games can change as a game develops and how different scenarios are created as the 19 minutes are played out. I want to talk again about the stats. Of course I do. 56% possession, so Sunderland had more of the ball. And you can see that Sunderland had more of the ball in a lot of areas, but you can see the total shots, 21 to 15. Both sides scoring, having quite a few shots. 8 to 9 shots on target. It's quite similar when it comes to shots on target. But you can see that for me, one thing I really want to highlight, the big chances. We spoke about Doncaster not creating any big chances. We spoke about Gillingham not creating any big chances. 4 big chances for Sunderland, 3 for Wycombe Wanderers, and you can see there the amount of big chances in that game. What sort of game that was? If you wanted to sort of see what a sort of exciting game we could watch, well, I think that sums it up perfectly. That for me sums everything up in one thing. What sort of game was that? Well, it had 7 big chances across the 90 minutes for both sides. That is absolutely brilliant, and that shows the sort of game we had yesterday when it comes to Wycombe versus Sunderland. If Oxford had got more than a 2-0 defeat out of Lincoln City, That would have been a brilliant score, finishing a draw. But Wycombe didn't. Oxford didn't make the most of that. Oxford didn't make the most of both sides, sort of dropping 2 points, if you like, and nothing really comes of it. But still, a fantastic game of football from a neutral perspective. I was lucky enough to watch the game because it was, I believe, on live on Sky Sports. And Sunderland and Wycombe, definitely. I think they constructed a brilliant advert for League One football. Anyone that says that League One football is, not a good enough quality or a poor standard of quality, and it's a lower standard of quality. Of course it is. That's why every team in here is in League One. But it still creates fantastic games of football. And I think yesterday was, like I said, a brilliant advert of just that. So that's when I'm going to wrap things up, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Breaking down every single game in League One yesterday. Like I said, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of this, let me know in the comments down below. What did you think of this weekend of action? I want to hear from you in the comments down below as well. Until next time, take care, stay safe, subscribe, leave a like, and hit that notification bell as well. Like I said, on the road to 700 subscribers with the ultimate ambition of hopefully eventually hitting 1,000. It really would mean the world if you could do just that. Like I said, until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all very, very soon.